Hey folks, Papa Boris here with another Through the Ages game. This was the second game to finish in Season 23, my Intermezzo championship. I was in the Bronze division. Going first against Dimitris and Stefan, I was fortunate enough to have Hammurabi. Dimitris and Stefan were the two lowest rated players in my group. Stefan was a couple hundred and some change points rated lower than me, and Dimitris was rated another couple of hundred points rated less than Stefan. And a bit of a spoiler, Dimitris did end up resigning 3 of his 6 games. They were all 3 games with me, humble brag alert. So we're going to take this as an opportunity to investigate where did he go wrong. I mean, this guy did win his group out of 6 games in Wood League playing against other newbies or, lower rated players, presumably. So he's not like completely incompetent. He's a solid player. So what happens? Why does he end up resigning in age 3? Let's take a look. So Dimitris on his opening draft grabs Hanging Gardens and Confucius. Now Confucius is a very strong leader with that free science. Hanging Gardens, a widely reviled wonder, although I don't think it's that unreasonable to take it here. So there's nothing, I don't think, wrong with his draft. In one of Weidenbaum's, and I did look up the pronunciation, I said it wrong in my last video, my apologies. One of Weidenbaum's recent videos, he made a point that he thinks that cultural heritage is a little bit underrated. I don't know if that's true, but, it's his opinion, and he was a world champion at one point, so it's worth considering here, taking Confucius and cultural heritage to avoid committing yourself to this crappy wonder. Although, if you do take this card, with me not having taken a wonder, there's a really good chance you don't get an easy age A wonder, or maybe you have to pay 2 actions for one of the other ones. Besides the Colossus in the library, there may be Acropolis, maybe Colosseum, or maybe neither, depending on the luck of the draw. So if you're like, well, I really want an age A wonder, and Hanging Gardens is better than nothing, this is a perfectly reasonable line. All right, then it's Stefan. He grabs Engineering Genius A and Boudica. Now, Boudica is a very good leader. She can also be used to give yourself free science or rocks or food, depending on the circumstances. I would have preferred the library here, but I also understand saying, hey, my leader might be giving me free science. Let me take Engineering Genius to help me build my age A wonder. Maybe he thought he didn't want to give Engineering Genius A to me along with a wonder, but as it is, because he doesn't take the library, I get the library, and I was pretty happy either way. I think all in all, I got a very lucky start here because I got Hammurabi, and then in my first turn, I was basically guaranteed getting a wonder. In this case, one of the best wonders in the game, the Library of Alexandria. My first turn, I can take the wonder, play my leader, build a mine, raise population, and I even have a free food sitting around, so really everything just works out perfectly, and it's over to Dimitris. So how does Dimitris do on his first real turn? Well, he plays his leader, makes a mine, raises population, grabs a free rock. A completely normal first turn, nothing wrong here. Then it's up to Stefan. Stefan plays his leader. He got unlucky. Neither the Acropolis nor the Colosseum showed up, so he doesn't have anything for his Engineering Genius A. Not saying that's a mistake, but this is the kind of risk you run if you choose to grab Engineering Genius in the draft instead of an actual good wonder. But okay, he's got things he can do. He grabs the Knights, the top card of the Age 1 deck, to ensure he has military. He also grabs Rich Land. Now, this is a blunder, and we've seen other good players make this before, so in case the memo is not out, this gives you a rock. Building your mine also gives you a rock, but this costs 2 actions, whereas building a mine costs 1, so Stefan did throw away an action here. Even though he had an opponent rated in the 1200s, I would say the first really big mistake of the game was actually committed by Stefan. So I was happy to see that, of course. That gives me an advantage. One of my opponents is an action down in the early game for absolutely no reason, and it's back over to me. So what do? Well, I decide to build an age A lab. The Library of Alexandria is a good wonder to rush. If you rush it, I find that it's worth it, even if it means passing up a science, not building your age A lab, because you'll eventually build the wonder, maybe like a turn later, and then you'll miss out on 1 science in the process. However, here, with only 3 rocks, no event, and no, if I hadn't event, I would have played it to see if I had gotten 2 rocks. Like, if I'd gotten 2 rocks from an event, I would have actually built the first 2 stages of this wonder. But with only 3 rocks, you can only build 1 stage, get only 1 rock down. It seems kind of pointless, so I decided, okay, let's just build my lab. And then, what to do? Well, here, it's kind of slim pickings. So I decided to commit the frugality and open up my consumption. Yes, this does mean that I lose a food, but also the frugality gave me a food, and I felt that using up the action in a way that would make sense, like paying my civil action debt, so to speak, seeing as how I would eventually need to do this anyways, was worth the food that I was losing in the process. And I still have 3 actions left. Luckily, there's an easy one here, which is to take Stockpile. With Stockpile, not only, first of all, does Hammurabi make it a little bit more palatable to have to spend the action to play this card, but in a specific case here, if I have 3 rocks, and then Stockpile, that's 4 rocks, this means if we do get a 2-rock event, I can build the Wonder next turn. So I kind of get my cake and eat it, where I built my lab and my Wonder. If I even get 1 rock, which is possible with the development of trade routes, right here, that 1 rock, I can at least build the first 2 stages of the Wonder if I have Stockpile, but without it, this one only lets me build 1 stage of the Wonder. So I feel like that was really worth to take here, and then I decided to grab Nostradamus. He's a great leader. You can see what's happening when people play events. You get culture for playing events, and then you get this massive 3 strength boost. Again, it's only defensive, of course, but still it's very good. And yes, there are other leaders that I would be very excited to play with here. You know, Isabella and her rock is great. Jan with the military is great. Saladin with the extra action is great. Genghis is great if you draw right tactics. Even Leonardo if alchemy comes along. Lots of great leaders here. I'm not saying Nostradamus is my favorite leader here. He's just the one who's there. And it's on a turn where I don't have much to do with my actions. Instead of taking crappy yellow cards, I thought it was better just to do something productive and grab a good leader. All right, so does anything go wrong on Demetrius's next turn? Well, here he plays an event, and it is 2 rocks. So I am going to get to build my Wonder next turn. Demetrius takes the 2 rocks, grabs Alchemy for 2 actions. It's the best card here. He builds then 2 stages of the Hanging Gardens. Now, we all know what I'm going to say about that. He could have built 1 stage, and then for 2 rocks plus urban growth, built a lab. As far as I'm concerned, he threw away a science for nothing, and unlike, say, the Library of Alexandria or the Pyramids, this Wonder does not really benefit that much from being rushed. You start getting a culture, you start getting 2 food, which might even be bad, and you get happy faces that are unlikely to be productive for a while. So I do think he misplayed here, although to be fair, this is not like a oh, what a noob 1200 rated kind of mistake. I mean, we've seen high rated players also rush their Wonders, and I've taken them to task just as well. So nothing super crazy going on here. Man's just trying to get his Wonder built quickly, and I happen to disagree about whether that is worth passing up on the lab. Stefan's up, plays an event. We get a free warrior. Stefan does take advantage of that. He also gets 2 rocks from Demetrius's event. Now he builds that mine that he should have built last turn, so he's an action down at this point. What to do with his remaining actions? Well, kind of luckily for him, there wasn't really much to do with his actions anyways. This is a very dry board here. All the really important stuff is just not here. So he raises population, makes the same choice as me to accept losing a food in order to pay off his civil action debt. And then he grabs irrigation because, I mean, it is a productive card. If he had an extra action here, he could potentially have actually researched irrigation and committed to upgrading it next turn. I know some people say don't research attack if you're not going to use it, but I've seen high-rated players in Weidenbaum's games do it. As long as you are pretty sure that you're going to be doing that, then getting it down early is just paying down your civil action debt, and I think it's totally fine. Note, by the way, there's no Pierre in this game, so the bread and circuses, you could take that to fix your happy face issues, but it's just not a really pressing priority, and it doesn't have any like long-term explosive potential. So on my turn, we really showcase the power of Hammurabi. I play the stockpile with 6 rocks and 3 actions. I build the library, and I am revolting here because I used the free warrior event. Now, obviously then, if I was any other leader, I would either have to not take the free warrior or not build the wonder. But as Hammurabi, I get to use my bonus action to raise population and get out of revolt. This does mean I'm passing on swordsman, which I was sad about, but it's not the end of the world. We've got 3 science production really early, and we're ready to rock. Demetrius plays an event. It is free science for everybody. He now finishes the Hanging Gardens, raises population, and at this point, you just build the lab. Just build the lab. It's right there. You have the urban growth, 2 rocks, build the lab. But he doesn't build the lab. He takes swordsman, okay, which is fine. You can still build your lab, and warfare. Now, there's nothing wrong with swordsman and warfare necessarily. I've learned from Weidenbaum's videos that I probably underestimate warfare. It is expensive, but military actions are valuable, and so grabbing it is fine. My personal preference here would be something like a Richland or an urban growth, especially because you have this alchemy here. And you might seem, okay, well, 1 science is kind of low, so isn't this a lot of science debt? Well, sure, but one of your cards is alchemy, so that will help pay off your science debt, and you have Confucius, who's generating an extra science every turn, so really he's on par with someone who has 2 labs. So there's nothing wrong with taking these techs. What is wrong is not building the lab! Gotta build the lab, gotta get your science going. There's no reason not to. Well, there is, but I don't think it's a good enough reason. He is also now corrupt, so he has to pay 2 rocks to build a warrior that I don't think he really needs here. There's nothing like that's that valuable about having this warrior compared to building up your economy with a lab, in my opinion. All right, so Stefan's up, and something juicy drops into his lap, Leonardo and Alchemy. He takes advantage of it. He picks up Leonardo, replaces Boudica, grabs Alchemy, researches it, and then upgrades his lab to start getting his own science going. Now, this does mean that he's corrupt. Note that there was no, like, research alchemy before Leo to avoid getting the rock. Even if he had spent 1 fewer rock, he still would have been corrupt. I checked this. So he did it fine. He accepted the corruption in exchange for getting this lab up and running. He could have kept Boudica around longer, but Boudica this turn was giving the 2 things because Demetrius popped ahead of him. Maybe that's why Demetrius did it. I don't think that screwing over one player who has Boudica is worth building a warrior you don't need and spending rocks that are better spent elsewhere. But because of this choice, I get a bit lucky since it doesn't hurt me none. It made Stefan lose out on a science rock or food, but I think he made the right call to just get Leo going and pass the turn. All right, so it's over to me. I have an easy decision to make and a hard decision to make. I think the easy decision here is to take iron, research it, and start my rocks going. My science is semi-fixed, and let's get to work on these rocks. The question then is, what do I do with my last couple of actions? There's 3 appealing cards here. I think if Monarchy, okay, if I had 8 science instead of 7 next turn, I might have taken Monarchy. It's a little tricky, of course, to commit to Monarchy because Hammurabi will go away. Then you kind of have 5 civil actions, and you're not really, long term, it's not really good enough. I don't know if the pyramids or code of laws or something to make Monarchy a long-term thing. I think it may still be correct to do it. Remember, with Hammurabi, you could do like the revolution +1 action with Monarchy, and I won't have any corruption issues doing that. So maybe that would have been worth it. But I choose the other route. I take the other 2 cards, Irrigation and Rich Land, so I can build both of my mines next turn and then also upgrade my food. I have a very aesthetically appealing symmetry here, which is that I have my, okay, it's not symmetry, it's good feng shui maybe. It just feels good to have the age 1 irrigation and mines, and then with your wonder, you kind of have a semi-fixed science, and then you can really jumpstart it with labs in age 2. So I wanted to not pass on that. Demetrius plays an event. It's a free temple, but he misses out on it. So he gets a bit unlucky there. He researches the alchemy, upgrades a lab to get his science a bit more fixed, and now what to do with his remaining actions, he decides to take the breakthrough, which is a great card. 2 science is fantastic, but now, of course, you have to pay your food to raise your population to avoid corruption. So he misses out on Isabella, which is tough. I would have taken Isabella and just been sad about not getting breakthrough, because I really, really like her. I like getting the free rock, but I think it's also fine to say, hey, let me just get the breakthrough here and ride or die Confucius until the very end. So nothing wrong with this turn, I don't think, and we're over to Stefan. Stefan plays an event, so the age 1 deck is starting. We get the development of civil life. It's a good turn for him because he gets to use these 2 food to raise his population. Then with the rest of his turn, he develops knights, makes a knight, and we're all holding our breath as he have the phalanx. He takes the iron, which is totally normal, grabs urban growth, which will help him build a second lab later, and no phalanx. Okay, so we get to all take a deep breath. If he had the phalanx, it would have been a little bit scary. Well, it wouldn't have been that scary. I would have needed to play Nostradamus, and I'm fine. But still, it would have been very hard to catch up to him, and he would have been likely to benefit from any strength-based events in here. Now, I, as you may note, have some strength-based events that I refrained from playing. This is an important thing for the newer players out there. Don't just shove events into the deck. If you're not going to win these strength-based events, or if you're at risk of losing them, don't play them. And by not playing them, you're also slowing down the deck in general, so if there's other strength-based stuff in there, you don't get hurt by that as soon, or maybe you have more time to catch up on military and work around it. All right, so on my turn, I play the Rich Land to upgrade my mine. I upgrade my other mine, so my rocks are fixed. I now have 3 actions to work with. What to do? Well, Silk Road is pretty tempting here because it's 7 rocks. I make 6 per turn. I have Hammurabi to offset the action penalty of the Silk Road, and it's a great wonder. More science, more culture, miscellaneous benefits from yellow cards. And with the library and the Silk Road and 2 labs, it's kind of like I upgraded my alchemies. So I'm sort of operating at a full age 1 economy, assuming I get irrigation going at some point. But the irrigation will be delayed if I make the Silk Road. We are about to trip the age, and these 2 workers are going to die, so this is not a real worker here. I decide to just take the more safe approach. I, first of all, replace my leader, grab Code of Laws, and research it. So it does cost all my science, and it means I can't take the Silk Road, But I do get to then take the reserves. So my thinking here was I make 6 rocks, and there's this university here. 6 plus 2 is 8. So if I get an extra rock, or granted if I just like wait an extra turn, then I can maybe get that university going and have really nice science from my wonders. As for playing Nostradamus here, the age is not going to flip right away, but we did flip the age 1 deck, so I just want to make sure I'm not the weakest in case there's any other junk in there like Border Conflict or whatever, or Crusades or something, so that I don't get hit by it. And also, there is some benefit to just having Nostradamus in play, because remember, there is that thing where he gets to see what events are coming in. I am not super serious. I don't like take notes. And unfortunately, in the replay, you don't get to see what I would have seen during the game about the events coming in. But, Weidenbaum in his videos is really amazing. You should definitely watch them. He will like take notes in the games that he has Nostradamus, so that when he's giving commentary, he like says what his opponents played when he had Nostradamus. We are going to be leaving that out of the replay here today. Demetrius plays an event. It's the developed territory. I give it a shot, but Stefan beats me on tie breaks, so he just plays a warrior and a defense card to win it. Demetrius then goes for the Silk Road. Now, this is okay, because he does have 4 plus 3 is 7 rocks. There's no corruption, and he could take the principled approach of building a stage this turn and spending his entire turn next turn to get this thing built. I don't know that I would have done that. I think with my 4 actions, I may have preferred to like build the lab and, maybe research swordsman, upgrade a sword. Granted, if you're building a lab and researching swordsman, that's only 2 actions. And then your other 2 actions, there's really nothing that great going on. So don't, nothing that my turn would have been that much more amazing than his. You could take Code of Laws for 3 and research it to get yourself an extra action. So I don't know that I would have had a much more amazing turn here than grabbing the Silk Road. But it is worth noting that if Demetrius had taken different actions in the previous turns, then he may have already had a second lab here, and it may have been a lot more appealing then to grab the Code of Laws and knowing that you're not losing all your science and actions to research it. Now, he makes a small mistake here. He breakthroughs Warfare, which is fine, but then he builds the first stage of the Silk Road. If you do it in the reverse order, you get an extra science from the breakthrough. Remember, Silk Road's bonus of the yellow card boost becomes active as soon as the first stage is built. He then does have the Legion, so he goes into the lead on strength, and he's also no longer weaker than me, even with Nostradamus' bonus. That's just a little bit concerning if Stefan follows suit. And then it's Stefan's turn. So Stefan plays Irrigation, upgrades a farm, upgrades another farm. With 6 science, he could have researched Code of Laws, and that would have given him a very valuable extra action. He decided to focus on his economy, and if I don't take the Code of Laws, or I already have the Code of Laws, so if Demetrius does not take Code of Laws, then Stefan might get it next turn. Now, why would Demetrius not take Code of Laws? Well, because he wants to finish the Silk Road. And if he takes and researches Code of Laws, he won't quite get the Silk Road online. So maybe Stefan was counting on this to wheel, or maybe he just didn't value it highly enough to pay 2 actions for it and all of his science, or maybe he just really wanted to get his economy done. Either way, totally fine, I think, to get Irrigation here. And he grabs swords. A lot of times you don't want both knights and swordsmen, but this stuff is all kind of bland. And if you do have knights and swordsmen, it opens up a lot of tactics. For example, if you get cannons, you can now do the Napoleonic army, which is one of every type of unit. And then you don't need to worry about getting the riflemen. So having it online earlier can be useful. All right, so on my turn, I actually do play an event. Remember that Nostradamus gets 3 points for playing events. I put uncertain borders in there, and I am no longer the weakest because of me being Nostradamus. If it wasn't for Nostradamus, I would lose 4 culture here. So now I know that uncertain borders is in there. Note that I prefer the uncertain borders over the foray because I feel like I'm more likely to not be the weakest than I am to be one of the strongest, so I save the foray. Remember, Nostradamus does not help with being the strongest. Okay, here I have a bit of a messy turn. So I research Irrigation, I upgrade both farms, so now my economy is totally fixed. And at this point, you have a couple different directions you could take. So one thing that you could do is you could just like play the reserves and then take Cartography or Warfare. Cartography is a bit speculative. I don't know about any colonies in there. Warfare, a card I tend to undervalue. Maybe, I shy away from it more than I should. Alternatively, you could spend both actions to grab Masonry here. This is a card I also tend to undervalue, or like I like it, but I just never take it. But here, I haven't built any age higher than A buildings, and this could save me some rocks plus actions in the future. Now I decide to go for the university, which I think is also a very reasonable play here. 2 plus 6 is 8, plus 2 is 10. This costs 9 rocks, so next turn I can play reserves and build this wonder and get my science going. I think it's a very strong thing to do here. What I don't think is a strong thing to do is to then spend your 2 rocks building a warrior. My thinking here was that I could then copy the Legion next turn after it enters the common bank and get 2 extra strength. But I don't urgently need to do that, and this does delay my wonder by a turn. I don't think it was really worth it. I mean, I could have just done this next turn if things got urgent. Maybe I was afraid that, like, well, next turn with only 2 military actions, I can't make a worker and get the tactic. But it's unlikely I would have needed to get the worker and the tactic next turn and have, like, that level of urgency to things. So I do make a misplay here. I distinctly remember when I played this game that I somehow thought that 6 rocks plus reserves could build a university. But no, that is 1 rock short. So if I had counted my numbers correctly, like a first grader, I would not have built that warrior. Demetrius is up. Here he plays an event. We get a historic territory. I decided to try a warrior and a defense card, and it actually works. So not amazing, but hey, a happy face is kind of handy. Kind of gives me an extra worker. I play my warrior and my defense card. Demetrius is up. Takes a very principled turn. A lot of new players would get this wrong, but he does the right thing, in my opinion. He just builds the Silk Road. Now, this does mean passing on Code of Laws, so Stefan makes out like a bandit with that. And yeah, maybe it would have been correct in this case to make an exception and say, hey, no, an action is worth it. You got to take the Code of Laws and make it. But I respect this a lot. Just get the wonder done, get your culture, get your science, and then look to get justice system and a government in H2 to fix your actions. This does mean that Confucius will die without being replaced, but again, I think it's an okay move here to do that. So now we're in H2. Let's take a quick look at how everybody's doing. Culture, we're fine, except for Stefan, who is definitely behind. Stefan is actually, we're all tied on science. I'm the only one who's got rocks. Stefan and I have food, and then I'm the only one who has an extra action. So I'd say I'm in the lead here, and Stefan has some catching up to do. But to Stefan's credit, it is worth noting that he does have more rocks saved up, which is relevant. How many rocks a person has is also relevant, in addition to how many rocks they make. Plus, Stefan has this food, so he's got a deep pile of workers. This is after the Age 2 worker bank loss. So he's got access to workers, he's got access to iron, and he's got Leo giving him extra rocks and extra science. So I think he's in a better position than like just his numbers would indicate. So let's take a look at what he does. He researches iron, upgrades a mine, upgrades another mine. He could, of course, upgrade a third mine, but he decides instead to raise population and make a warrior, which makes sense because now he has drawn the phalanx. And with the phalanx, I think it makes sense to go in the lead. You now win all strength events, you dodge all weak events, and that's worth it. Now, even with Nostradamus' benefit, I actually am the weakest player. So in my case, on my turn, I actually don't play this 4A. What I do is I take Breakthrough, curse myself for not leaving myself 1 rock to build this university with. I then build 2 stages of it and grab a Frugality. Now, an important note is I didn't take Masonry. I could have taken Researched Masonry and then built a Stage of the Wonder. That would have been 3 actions, so I would have missed out on the Frugality, and I don't know, I think it might have been worth it. I'm about to have 5 science production, 3 science to make all my buildings cheaper for the rest of the game, and build 2 Stages of a Wonder per turn instead of 1. I think would have been worth it for 2 food and the 3 science. So I do think I messed up not taking Masonry there. It really was in my lap, and I just biffed it. Now, of course, I'm holding my breath because I am the weakest player. But I get a little bit of a lucky break. I draw Classic Army, so that gives me something to work towards, and Cavalrymen, or in a pinch, Knights, are right there for me to take. If, you know, I have the science for it, I got the rocks, I have the people, so if I can just go a turn of that total disaster, I am gonna be okay. So Demetrius, thankfully, has no event to play. He grabs Jan, plays him, changes from Legion to Fighting Band, which is smart. It's the same strength bonus, but it's 1 extra culture with Jan Shishka. And now with his last 2 actions, what to do? He grabs reserves, and he just builds a 4th mine. Now, the reserves, I think, is a perfectly normal play. You can use it for food and spend this 3 food on this food production that's currently stalled and get another worker out of the bank. But this mine, I would say, is the first major mistake that Demetrius makes this game. Again, I've quibbled with some of his earlier decisions, like the rushing of the Wonder or whatever, but this is very problematic. If you're going to build something with that worker that you have, it needs to be the lab to get your science up, or it can be a farm. And this is another thing I've seen in top-rated players in Weidenbaum's games, where they'll build the third AJ farm sometimes. I almost never do this. It's just not something that's on my radar, but it can be very crafty. In this case, it would increase food production to 1, and then with 4 food, you get a worker out next turn. Now, there is a risk of rats coming along and throwing everything away, so it's a little not without its dangers. But the one thing you definitely don't want to do is build a mine. The problem is that now you're basically out of workers, and that means you don't have a lot of good ways to spend your rocks. You can build wonders, but age 2 wonders are expensive, and 4 rocks per turn instead of 3 is not like going to make you a wonder building powerhouse. So you're going to make these rocks, you're going to often be corrupt because you can't spend them. You have 3 food sitting here, which is going to make your corruption problems worse. This is really, unfortunately, a disaster of a decision for Demetrius, and that's where I first started to think, okay, now this player may really be falling apart. Stefan is up. He raises population, builds a lab, and grabs engineering genius. This move, it's a bit speculative. He still never built a wonder all game, but on the other hand, there's not a whole lot for him else to take. So I don't hate this decision. And then with his last action, he grabs navigation. Again, maybe not the most high impact technology here, but I don't hate this decision because he unfortunately just got a bit unlucky. There wasn't really anything great for him to grab. He already has swordsmen and knights, doesn't need the cavalry, doesn't need the rifles. He could, I guess, take journalism. That would be good with Leo. And for generating culture, maybe that was the way to go with these rocks. But he grabs these 2 cards instead, speculates a little bit, and it's over to me. So I'm like, thank goodness nobody played any events. And I grab the horses, grab the rifles. They're both right there in my lap. It's a bit of a project to get these guys built into a classic army, but I decide to undertake it. I am, after all, doing fine on culture-ish. I'm starting to fall behind Demetrius, but I'm doing fine-ish. I can afford to take a long-term project to fix my military. I researched the rifleman right away, in fact. Upgrade 1, I have 3 rocks left to finish my wonder, which I stupidly delayed, and then with my last action, I just raised population. Now note, I don't use frugality. I don't remember my status of knowledge since I did play Nostradamus kind of late. I don't think I knew what these events were, so if they were rats, I didn't want to play frugality and lose that food for no reason. I toss away the 2 horse tactics I'm never going to use, draw a war over territory, which is tough to pull off on 2 military actions, but still interesting and good to know that my opponents don't have it, and it's over to Demetrius. Now, I mentioned that last turn Demetrius, with this mine, made his first big mistake of the game, and in this turn, he makes his second big mistake. In fact, this is, a good exercise if you're a newer player. Pause the video and think about what you would do here on the turn as the red player. You only have 4 actions, so there's not that many options. Okay. There are several things that I would consider here a reasonable play, but you definitely need to play this Republic or Constitutional Monarchy. Your turn needs to involve playing one of these governments. You have enough science to play either one of them outright. The real question is, do you take Robespierre and do it, or do you take Catherine? So if you do it with Catherine, there is, a little bit of a risk in whether you're going to actually be able to get the yellow token or not. If you do it with Robespierre and do Republic, then you get a 9 science discount, which is pretty huge. And, that gives you lots of science to work with in the future. And now you have 7 actions. With this warfare that I poo-pooed earlier is giving an extra military action, and that makes the 2 military actions of Republic bearable. Plus, if you are doing it with Robespierre, who has a military action himself and will for the rest of H2 at the very least, you have 4 military actions, 7 civil actions. You're doing amazing on actions. You can start taking yellow cards, and you can, climb out of this slight hole that you've made by building this unwise 4th mine. But Demetrius misses this, and he doesn't take either government for some reason. I'm not sure why. He grabs the journalism and the opera, researches the swordsman, and upgrades a warrior. He then builds another warrior, so he's super ahead on strength. What's interesting to note is that instead of taking journalism and opera, he could have done these things and also taken and played Republic. He has 11 science. He could have just taken Republic, played it, and then used the 3 extra actions to take journalism and opera if he wanted to. Now, I don't agree with this. I think that reserves makes more sense here than opera. If you're going to be taking journalism, you're not going to be getting both of these buildings online with just 4 mines. And 0 workers, may I remind. So taking the Republic, fixing the actions, grabbing this yellow card would have made a lot more sense, and he still could have done this play with the warrior. In fact, if he passes on journalism or the reserves, he could actually do the same exact play with the swordsman and also play Catherine. Now, when Jan goes away, he loses 1 strength because these 2 farms no longer count as a fighting band. But it is worth noting that if you do take Catherine, then you're probably going to get to pull her off because in a 3-player game, you only need 1 player weaker than you. And Stefan, if you leave him Robespierre and one of these governments, let's say you take the Republic and you leave him Robespierre and Constitutional Monarchy, he's gonna do it. And that means he's gonna lose all his military action doing the Robespierre Revolution. So he's gonna stay at 7, which means that you are pretty much guaranteed. I mean, not guaranteed, but you're very, very likely to get Catherine's token. So I could see doing this line, but then you need to spend, instead of the 3 actions doing journalism and opera, taking Republic, researching it, and playing Catherine over Jan. You lose 1 culture and 1 strength compared to having Jan Shishka, but you're going to get a yellow token, which is actually quite handy because the turn you get the yellow token, it immediately goes in, and then you can spend these 3 food to get it out. It's just so valuable. So this was a significant step backwards for Demetrius. He really missed a big opportunity here with either Robespierre or Catherine. All right, so Stefan plays an event. It's free science from Confucius. And now he, of course, has Robespierre to take. Since he doesn't have any extra military actions, he decides to grab the Constitutional Monarchy. It is 4 extra science compared to the Republic with a revolution, but I think that's worth it to have 2 extra military actions, even considering that you lose a civil action. So now he also grabs the Organized Religion to fix his happy faces later on, and the reserves. He upgrades the Final Mind. One thing I noticed watching a lot of Stefan's moves back in these replays is just how clean so many of his turns are. Just not like a lot of stupid crap going on. Just like a lot of the actions or all the actions on a turn are doing something productive. If you can play that way, you will go pretty far in through the ages. All right, so now it's over to me, and I continue with my plan. I research the horses. I build a horse. That's like all my rocks and all my science for the turn. But now I can actually raise population, grab the efficient upgrade, and most importantly, play reserves for 2 rocks. This lets me use my other military action to upgrade a warrior with the rifle. And it is somewhat timely that I get this done. Everything this turn was geared towards getting this classic army online. I would have liked architecture, of course, maybe even taking the Republic. Although with code of laws and no military actions, the Republic is less appealing than the Constitutional Monarchy would have been. But every single thing I did this turn, all of my actions, civil and military, are geared towards getting this classic army online. And now I can finally do it. Because next turn I will need 1 military action to make the horse and then another one to play the tactic. And with only 2 military actions, I got to get myself in that position. I throw away a foray and keep the plunder, which is a little bit ambitious. Maybe keeping the foray would have been better, so I'd at least have the option to play an event with Nostradamus, since I'm not getting any draws this turn. Demetrius plays an event. It's another Confucius science. Now we're flipping over the deck. At this point, I know what's in there. There are some strength-based events. And now we realize why Demetrius took journalism and opera. He thinks he's going to get journalism and opera going with Shakespeare, but this is dead in the water. He has no workers, and 4 rocks per turn is not enough to build 8 rock buildings. So he really miscalculated strategically. It's interesting to watch this because in Age 1, when you're just kind of taking it turn by turn and just doing something efficient every turn, he actually played okay. But then when it came time to come up with the right plan in Age 2, he didn't correctly read the situation as Shakespeare is not a possible plan. And maybe that's also why he passed on Catherine and Robespierre, was waiting for the Shakespeare that was sitting up higher on the row. He plays the reserves for 3 food because he has Silk Road. He then gets another worker out of his bank. He upgrades a warrior, grabs the urban growth to help him build this misbegotten project, and then he passes he upgrades another warrior, then he passes the turn. So he's ahead on culture, he's ahead on strength, but his economy is very, very lagging, and he has saddled himself. He's got a full hand, and this is not a good plan. So Stepan is up. He researches swordsman, no event from him. He upgrades warriors, builds a knight, and has the conquistadors to get out of strength trouble. He then researches the organized religion and upgrades the temple. Really nice planning, everything clean and smooth, gets out of the trouble just in time. He then has 2 extra actions left to grab reserves and engineering genius. It's worth noting that you could take breakthrough here for 3 science. Is 3 science worth more than 9 rocks? Conditional to getting a wonder? Maybe, maybe not. I think it's a tough call. Suez is falling off the road, but every other wonder is still in the deck. So I think, especially because he has this leftover Engineering Genius 1, it does make sense to just kind of go all in and get more rocks to help build your first wonder super quickly. He does have 6 rocks coming in every turn versus only 4 science. So the breakthrough could be more relatively valuable since he already had rocks in hand. All right, it's over to me. At this point, I breathe a sigh of relief. I grab the Constitutional Monarchy, which I really want to fix my military actions with. Next turn, I can actually research it outright. I build a horse, and I play my tactics, so now I am in the lead on strength. I also get Architecture, Breakthrough, and just to use my actions, raise my population. This Architecture does not end up being very important in this game. I don't know, I'm kind of cursed. I just never know when to get these Masonry techs and when not to. I feel like otherwise I pass on them and I should have taken them, or I take them and they don't do anything. But in this case, there wasn't much else for me to do. So, okay, I grab it, and for lack of anything else, pass the turn. All right, Demetrius is up. He gets going. He researches the journalism and makes a lab. So now he's really doing great on culture. His science is fixed. But he has terrible actions, no workers, and a plan that is doomed to fail. He also grabs the Republic here, researches it now, which is strange that he didn't do that earlier, but now at least he does it. He grabs the coal and he grabs selective breeding. In this case, selective breeding is absolutely critical because he desperately needs to get these farms online. But I think coal you just got to pass on. You've got 4 rocks per turn. You got 7 actions. Ride the rest of the game with yellow cards. But taking the coal on 5 science production and actually getting it upgraded is, I don't think, worth the time. You might as well spend one of those actions grabbing efficient upgrade to make it easier to get your selective breeders going. He also adopts the Legion now that he has 4 swordsmen so that he's getting a couple extra strength. Actually, just 1 extra strength from 2 legions versus 3 fighting bands. He actually loses a culture in the process, interestingly. And then he passes the turn. All right, so Stefan's up. He has no event because he's the weakest. Kremlin, I don't know if that would have been his first choice of wonder. I think most people's first choice of wonder here would be the ocean liner service. But the Kremlin is what's there, so he takes it and takes a very principled turn. He just builds it. So now he's got some culture going, which is important because he's behind on culture. He really does need to start catching up at some point. And he's also got extra actions, which is nice for him. He grabs the cannons so that he's open to all H2 tactics. And he upgrades a warrior. He's ready to copy my classic army and grabs opera. Now here, I probably would have taken the frugality for the food, but I think this is a smart play. It gives you a way to turn your rocks into culture, which is an important and valuable thing to have. So on my turn, I have to make a careful decision. Can I just use both my military actions to declare war over territory on Demetrius? And the answer is yes. So when you do this kind of thing, you have to ask yourself, what's the worst thing that could possibly happen? The worst thing that can possibly happen is that Demetrius takes cannon and he has the defensive army. Now, I know from Nostradamus that mineral deposits is not in the deck. That would actually be the worst thing, is he played mineral deposits and got 4 extra, played an event, mineral deposits came out, he got 4 extra rocks, and then made 2 cannons and had the defensive army. Then he would actually beat me. But I know that's not in there. So all you can do is make a cannon for 3 strength and the defensive army for another 6. But you have to look a little bit deeper. Right now, he's getting 2 legions from Jan Shishka, but Jan Shishka is going to die before the war is resolved. So what's actually happening is the defensive army is effectively only worth 2 strength because it's going to be replacing the 4 that he currently has, and then the cannon is worth another 3. So he's getting 5 strength going up to 18. So worst case scenario, I steal 1 yellow token from him. Best case, I steal 2. So I decide to go for it because even in the worst case, it's highly disruptive to his plans. I mean, he doesn't have any workers. He has to blow up a mine in order to get that cannon. And I still get a yellow token from him. And then the best case scenario is even better. And the worst case scenario is not very likely to happen. So if the worst case scenario is unlikely and it is still good for you, go for the war. Okay, so what else to do besides declaring this war? There's a few different options here. I decide to, of course, play the Constitutional Monarchy, which means I don't have enough science left over for strategy. But what I could do is I could take Darwin. It's a little weird, because then I actually have unhappy worker problems. But I can fix them. I can grab the Organized Religion, which with Darwin will only cost 1 action, and I can actually, like, with the sufficient upgrade, just fix my issues. I could, like, take Darwin, play him, take this for 1 action, research it for 1, efficient upgrade it for 1. So that's a total of 1, 2, 3, 4 actions. I would still have 2 actions left over just to grab some yellow cards. I think it's a perfectly fine way to go, and maybe even the correct thing to do, especially because for one of my actions, I can take Cannon. With Darwin, Cannon would take 1 action would only cost 1 action to take, and that would stop Demetrius from actually even being able to upgrade his strength at all in any meaningful way. I think it's what I might do if I was playing this again. But I decided to take a quirky line instead. I take Darwin, play him, and then to fix my unhappiness issues, instead of Organized Religion, which I have the efficient upgrade for, I decided to take Team Sports. I don't really know why I did that. It's probably not very smart. And then with my last 2 actions, again, it still could be correct to take the Cannon here to stop Demetrius from having it, but I decided to just grab the Revolutionary Idea, because the Cannon, well, it's speculatively valuable to me. If I have the Cannon, I'm open to any age 3 tactics, but I decided I just really want 4 science. I'm at 0, I only make 5. This will at least let me, like, research architecture next turn, or maybe even strategy if that wheels. So I felt that was more valuable than getting the Cannon hate drafted from Demetrius. All right, so it's over to Demetrius. He does take the Cannon, he does research it, he does blow up a mine, and he does make a cannon. He does not have the fortifications, though, and so that means that when Jan Žižka dies, he's actually losing 2 strength, because he's going to have only 1 legion instead of 2, so he's going to be at 14. So I end up stealing 2 yellow tokens from him thanks to this War Over Territory, which is 1 yellow token plus another 1 for every 5 strength difference. He then grabs the Breakthrough for more science, a Patriotism, and he passes the turn, curiously, with 1 action left. I'm not sure why. I think that Organized Religion could be a useful card for him to fix his happy face issues later. I also think he should have definitely played Shakespeare, because Jan's gonna die. So all that he gets from keeping Jan is 2 culture, and 2 culture I think is definitely worth an action, because next turn when he plays Shakespeare, it's gonna cost an action to do that. So playing it now to save an action next turn I think is very worth it. Maybe still you pass the turn and don't take the Organized Religion if you really don't value it, but I mean, it is nice to have as an option for fixing your happy faces. In any case, he passes the turn here. The age ends, Jan dies, Stefan's up, he steals my classic army, plays opera, raises population, builds an opera, he starts catching up on culture, very good stuff here. And then what to do with 4 actions? He decides to build the Transcontinental Railroad. Now, I don't like this, but I will note that that is a playstyle thing, because he has 6 rocks coming and 6 more from reserves, and enough actions to play both reserves next turn and build this whole thing. And if you do that, I think that is acceptable, because at least you're not like we're in H3, generally building H2 wonders in H3 is not that great, but if you build it right away, I mean, it is 5 strength and it pays back the rocks eventually. There's not a whole lot of other stuff to take here, so it's not totally unreasonable, just not my playstyle. He then grabs Urban Growth and plays the reserves to get him out of his hand, so that next turn he has to spend 1 fewer action to get this wonder built. Interestingly, he passes on strategy, which I kind of understand, because he has enough military actions, so really the value of this is just 3 strength, and that may not be worth it on his low science production. All right, so it's over to me, and I get very lucky here. Not only do I get to steal the 2 yellow tokens from Demetrius, but I know that one of these age 1 cards is an urban, or is an uncertain borders. So instead of playing my plunder on Demetrius, which was pretty likely to work, I decided to take the maybe not sure thing, but closer to sure thing. I think it's like a coin flip, and just play an event, and it is uncertain borders, so I do steal another yellow token from Demetrius. So I just stole 3 yellow tokens from Demetrius, 2 from the war, and then another from these uncertain borders. How many? Yeah, there were 3 age 1 cards, so there was like 1 in 3 chance of uncertain borders, and I think some of the other ones are strength based as well, so I was likely to get something pretty good. All right, so what to do with my turn here? Well, this revolutionary idea I took last time pays off, because now what I can do is I can play it, which gives me the science I was missing to play the scientific method. Tragically, I'm not able to get this architecture down, so I'm not getting any value from it, but I do research it. I decide it's not worth it to wait for architecture. Let's get my science going now. I use my efficient upgrade not to upgrade my temple, but to upgrade a lab. I then take the strategy, because if I'm going to go warring in H3, the extra 2 military actions, in my case, make a really big difference. I have enough rocks to upgrade my other lab as well, and with my last action, well, it's 3 free food, so feels good to grab. It's also worth noting that I did get this Napoleonic army, so I can get a potential boost in strength if rockets come out, and I research them. Granted, I'd need some help from yellow cards, but if I make 2 rockets and I go to Napoleonic army, that's 14 strength from tactics versus the 8 from the classic army. So I do have a ace up my sleeve here with another option for raising my strength. Some people have commented that like it's a little bit swingy in Through the Ages whether you get the Age 2 tactics or not. There's only 1 copy of Classic Army, only 1 of Napoleonic Army. I had very few draws in this age, and in fact there were turns where multiple turns where I only had 2 military actions, so I missed both of my draws. Yet missing many draws in Age 2, I was still very lucky to get the Classic Army and the Napoleonic Army, because as you will see, both of them had an impact on this game. Classic Army, the beefy 8 strength I had from it, was enough to win a war against Demetrius, which I was also lucky to draw on very limited actions, and this, plus maybe the uncertain borders, combined to make Demetrius resign. So, it was an interesting game. He played pretty well in Age 1, and I would say that the root of this resignation lies in his strategy in Age 2. So hopefully he took something away from that, and now it's me going one-on-one versus Stefan. So Stefan plays the reserves, and with his 12 rocks, takes a very principled line and builds the Wonder. So now we're pretty close on strength. If we actually take a look at the situation here, culture, I'm a little bit ahead, but he's catching up. Science is my main advantage, rocks is his advantage, and we're both about the same on food. So it's anybody's game here. Also, as far as actions go, we're about the same, though he's beating me on the military actions, but the civil is the same. So really anyone's game here. Once again, this 1400s rated player is basically playing about as well as me. So really great credit to him, and I hope that he sees some success in tournaments and continues to climb in the Glico rating. Now he still has actions left over with a leader who's not doing anything and an opera. Marlene is right there, so of course he's going to take her, play her, get some extra culture, get some extra happy faces, and also grab these reserves. Just a really nice, clean turn for him. Okay, so it's over to me, and now the question is, how do I win this game? And what I decided, since I had this Napoleonic army and a science advantage, I could do things like research strategy, research airplanes, research rockets a lot more easily than Stefan could. So if we went to war, by my estimation, I thought that with my science advantage, I would be a more capable warrer, even though both of us have similar strength here and the same tactic currently. Because if he like researched airplanes, it's like all his science, whereas I could, research airplanes and keep on trucking. Of course, it all kind of depends on when they come out and whether I even draw any wars in the first place. So my plan was, plan A, do warring, but if the cards don't align, whether the military draws don't give me the wars or the civil deck does not give me the airplanes/rockets at the right time, then I needed a backup plan. And that's where things get kind of weird. I don't have a way to turn rocks into culture, which is a classic me problem, and then the civil action deck is not serving anything up. Ian is here, who is great at culture, but that would require libraries and theaters, and those are not here at the moment. So I play an event. We get free science from Confucius. And what I decide to do is this. I raise the population with frugality, raise it again, get the architecture down, and this allows me to build a lab. If it wasn't for architecture, I couldn't actually have built it. I would have been 1 rock short. The reason for this is that now with even more science, I'm in position to research the technologies needed for going to war. And there's a bunch of leaders who benefit from it. Sid Meier would give me 6 culture per turn. Gates would give me 6 rocks per turn. Albert Einstein would give me 3 culture per turn for technology that I research. And I do have lots of actions and lots of science with which to research technologies. So if those leaders show up, I can use them and try to maintain my culture lead. At the moment, Stefan's catching up. He can build operas. So he's going to start catching up even harder and eventually overtake me. So I figured, okay, let's put myself in position to have a gas pedal to press and get some more culture if needed. With my last 3 actions, of course, I could take revolutionary idea. Patriotism is good for going to war. Urban growth is good for building a building later. I decided to grab the fast food chains. I don't know how smart this is, but with the architecture, I can build these in 2 actions. And if, it comes down to it, then the 20-some points I'm going to get from them may make the difference. Okay, so Stefan is up. He decides to counter my fast food chains with the Empire State Building. I do draw a war with my first draw of Age 3, so I'm committed. I see this military theory pop up. I'm like, okay, we're definitely going to be doing the war plan. He raises population, Grabs Mechanized Agriculture, interestingly, for 2 actions. There was one here for 1 action, but he wanted to deprive me of it. I didn't mention this, but I could have taken this last turn and, like, done it and just, like, upgraded some farms to get more worker production. Because that is very early in the age, and getting more worker production from this makes it a lot easier to go to war. I judged that I didn't need these, though, so I was really happy that he spent an extra action to take it, because I was not going to take it even when it came down. And that is a significant move. I'm not saying it's a mistake, because I might be the one mistaken of not getting this. But after he builds this opera and is out of actions, like if he had 1 extra action because he had taken this one, he could have taken Revolutionary Idea, which is 6 science, which is a big ass deal when he's only making 4 science in age 3. So this is a really significant cost, and I don't think it was worthwhile, and it didn't end up being worthwhile because I know I wasn't going to take the farms anyway. But I'm not saying that necessarily this was a mistake. So on my turn, I play an event. We have Dark Ages, which I knew was coming. I just needed to get this out of the way because if I was making way more science than Stefan, so if this kept going, I was going to be in even worse shape. In fact, the fact that I'm making 12 per turn and he's making 4, and I only lost 2 more than him is a huge victory. So I just needed to get it out of the way. And now it's time to get to preparing. I just need rockets or airplanes to show up, and we're in 2-player mode, so we're going to be cycling through pretty quickly. Figured it was pretty likely one of them was going to come up soon. I do decide to take the military theory. It only costs 1 action compared to just researching strategy, but I felt like the extra military action and the extra truth strength may be worth it. As we'll see, maybe not. I research it, I raise population, I grab reserves, patriotism, and patriotism. I go all in on rocks for the sake of preparing for this war over culture. And then I let these revolutionary ideas fall off the board. I mean, I just don't need them. But if I wasn't making 12 science, which is exactly what airplanes cost, then it would have been important to take one of these revolutionary ideas. Had I not taken the military theory and just researched strategy, I could have also taken a revolutionary idea. I just didn't think it was worth enough, so I decided to go for the bigger blue card. So I'm watching the deck like a hawk. I draw a second war. So, I mean, at this point, if I have to, I'm just going to make another classic army. It costs 20 rocks to make another classic army. It's a bit painful because I'd have to, like, blow up 2 mines to do it. But maybe if Bill Gates comes out, I can kind of manage that, and I can just shove the horses and the riflemen in here with 20 rocks. That's 12 strength plus another 8 from the classic army. That's 20. I go up to 47. That's a decent war. So I'm watching the deck, and what we see here is 2 copies of Rockets, which is very good for me because no matter what now, I am definitely going to get a copy of Rockets. Now, this is a little weird. We're actually playing with the Age 3 deck. So a little technicality here. Demetrius didn't resign until Age 3, which means that we have the Age 3 deck already in place. But if he had resigned in Age 2, then the Age 3 deck would have been turned into a 2-player deck from a 3-player deck, and then there would have only been 1 copy of Rockets. So it's a little bit lucky for me that Demetrius waited to resign, because it meant that there was no way for Stefan to deprive me of Rockets. Not that he necessarily would have. He already has cannon. I was probably pretty lucky to get the rocket, or pretty safe to get the Rockets anyways, but them being 2 in the deck means it was more likely that they would show up. As it is, with there being 2 in the deck and them both showing up at the same time, now I am absolutely guaranteed to have Rockets on my turn, so the war is on. Stefan may have been a little bit oblivious to it, or maybe there was just not much better for him to do. He researches the agriculture, upgrades a farm, raises population, builds another knight, grabs computers, urban growth, and upgrades the other farm. So maybe he wasn't really oblivious. I mean, he did build a knight that doesn't actually doing anything, so maybe he was prepared for the possibility of me warring. Maybe he was trying to forestall an aggression. But as it is, there's absolutely nothing stopping me now from going to war. So I declare the war, and now I use this ace up my sleeve, the Napoleonic Army. I take rockets for 1 action from the second row as a flex, I guess. I mean, Stefan can still get these rockets, obviously. I research them. I play both patriotisms, and then with 14 rocks, I make 2 rockets. I don't even have to blow anything up. That's the real advantage here. I could have made another classic army, but that would have taken 2 extra yellow tokens, and those would have been hard for me to come by. I guess I could use the reserves for food and get 1, but I'd still have to blow up a mine for the other. As it is, what else to do? Well, there is a reserves here, which is good. There is Einstein here, I guess, that I could use to research stuff with. Note that Dickens, oh my god. Different Charles, Boris! Different Chucky D, Charles Darwin. With this Darwin here, I am making an extra culture from the lab, so he is sort of tempting to hold on to. But ultimately, I decided just to say, screw it, let's get my Napoleonic Army and play Air Forces. Because this means that next turn, with 14 rocks, I can make 2 air forces and then do another war. By the way, with Darwin, not Dickens, I actually only pay 2 actions for this air forces, which is amazing because it gives me another copy of reserves, and reserves, of course, is an amazing card in Age 3 when you have lots of civil actions. So I have another war here. Stefan plays an event. It's freedom of movement, although it doesn't really help. I mean, he could use it to like turn a mine into a sword, but as we'll see, that doesn't really do anything for him. If I remember correctly, he like turned a theater into an opera. Yeah, he turned the organized a temple into an opera, which makes sense because the organized religion gives 3 happy faces, but the opera gives, with Marlene, 2 because she gives extra happy faces per opera. So it's more culture. You only lose 1 happy face, but he doesn't need it. And so why not turn like a mine into a sword? Well, the thing is, if you look at his turn, he has this food production, so he raises population, makes a sword, raises population, makes a knight. With Marlene's power, he's got a shadow swordsman here, giving him an extra 8 points. So Marlene's being amazing here. She's giving him 8 points, but the thing is, he just doesn't have enough rocks to do anything else to beef up his military. He grabs the air forces himself, though he can't research them next turn without the revolutionary idea, but he takes revolutionary idea. Really good clean play from Stefan, as always, and he passes the turn. So now in my turn, I am going to declare another war because I have 2 airplanes I can make, so I can continue applying pressure. So I steal the 13 culture, which is a 26-point swing, and then I do another war. So it was very fortunate I drew these wars. Even if you don't steal that much culture, it's still a double swing in a 2-player situation. And on top of that, you're tying up your opponent's resources, preventing them from getting culture in any other way. It's just so devastating to face this kind of pressure. By the way, if you're a newer player, this is something you have to keep in mind. Sometimes in the past, I'd be like, oh, I can only steal like a little bit of culture, so it's not worth doing the war. But the thing is, if you don't steal that culture, then the opponent can use their rocks and stuff and workers for other things. So there's a double whammy kind of an element to it, where not only are they losing culture to you, but they're losing the opportunity cost of the culture they could have gotten by not investing everything in their military. So I research airplanes. I play reserves for food because I can afford to since I have a second reserves. I make a worker. I do have to blow up a mine to get my last worker for the other airplane. But it's okay, because I can take Bill Gates and replace Darwin. Now, this does mean I'm losing 3 culture per turn, but with 2 wars, I don't need 3 culture per turn. Okay, we don't actually see what's happening here. I grabbed the modern infantry, I guess, just for the hell of it. But yeah, I mean, with me about to steal another 20-some culture from Stefan, it's just basically out of the bag. Even though he is getting 12 extra culture over me per turn, he is going to lose because not only am I stealing all this culture from him, but I've got the fast food chains. I also have the impact of science, which is another 13-point swing. So I felt really safe to switch off the 3 culture per turn. That's only like, 6 culture or something? And Bill Gates makes 6 culture at the end, because at the end he gets culture per library. So it's really only like 3 culture loss. It doesn't, it looks a lot worse than it actually is to replace Darwin here. And I actually draw another war over culture with my last 2 draws. So Stefan really gets unlucky with this, although I think at that point it didn't actually matter. He plays the revolutionary idea, gets the air forces, raises population, makes an airplane, blows up a mine, builds a temple for free with an urban growth, and grabs an efficient upgrade. Stefan's problem here is he didn't have any yellow cards, partly just, I think, due to luck. But because of that, I knew exactly what he could do. So, like, I knew that he could make an airplane and, like, a warrior, and that's it. And with that, I was 100% certain that I was going to get to beat him. It was lucky that the freedom of movement came out when it did, because that's one of the nastiest surprises that can happen, is if you declare war on someone and then they flip a freedom of movement and turn, like, a lab into an airplane or something that you weren't accounting for. But Stefan never had the opportunity to do that. So on my turn, I am stealing 26 culture from Stefan. It's a 52-point swing. He's now completely out of the game, and I decide to just add insult to injury, though it is not necessary at this point. I do declare the war because it is technically the best thing to do. I grab reserves. I grab democracy, which I'm sadly 1 science away from getting. I grab this engineering genius, and I just build 3 stages of the fast food chain. I'm going to be corrupt, but it doesn't really matter. I can finish the fast food chains next turn, get another 20-some points, research democracy, and win the game. It's possible I could have taken like movies or something, so I could have made a movie, but it's not a huge deal, as we shall see. All right, so H4 hits. Stefan raises population, makes another airplane, which is another 13 points, 5 for the airplane, 8 for the tactic. He's at 61 strength. He has the efficient upgrade that he took last time to upgrade the temple, so really clean play, always on top of it with the happy faces. But unfortunately, even with all this, he just can't quite catch up to my strength, so I'm stealing another 13 strength from him. This also means he never gets to build the Empire State Building. On my turn, I play the Impact of Science, I think. This flips up and does nothing. I researched democracy for 3 culture, and I could have, with 11 science, researched movies or something and made a movie. But the thing is that what I could do here, after playing reserves for food, is raise my population, and actually with democracy's urban limit being raised, I can actually make another lab. And that's 2 points at the end of the game with gates. So a movie would have been like 4 points, but the lab is 2 points. So the lack of a movies or a multimedia isn't as significant as it may appear. I now can also research the pro sports and upgrade a pro sport for 2 rocks. In fact, I could have upgraded another one in case of impact of competition or impact of urban buildings, but I'm out of actions. I can use my last action to play this engineering genius and finish my fast food chains for 22 points. All right, on Stefan's last turn, he makes a very instructive move. He just revolts into democracy. Don't miss this. It does take up his whole turn, but I mean, he was not going to do anything better than get 3 culture, so it makes sense to do that. And then he passes the turn. So the real question is, am I going to be able to double Stefan's score? He gets a pretty big win with Impact of Agriculture, so now I'm just a little bit double his score. Impact of Competition, I get a lot. He gets a little bit. I'm still just a little bit double his score. Then we have the Impact of Science that I put in. I am more than double his score. And finally, we have the Impact of Population, which he gets a lot of points on. So now I am not quite double his score, but then you add in Bill Gates's 8 points for the labs, and I'm just a little bit more than double my opponent's score. We'll say I'm more than both my opponents combined because one of them resigned. Thanks for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like and or subscribe, and I'll see you again soon. Take care.